I know why you're here. You're here because you want to see what it's like to run the most difficult gauntlet in Marvel's Ultimate Alliance 3. The level 270 Ultimate Gauntlet. This gauntlet has a lot of really good rewards in it, and we're going to cover what you need to expect and what team you should expect to bring in if you want to make sure that you can get these clear rewards for yourself. But before we jump into that, take a moment to see if you're subscribed to the channel. Odds are you're probably not, because only a fraction of a percent of people who are actually subscribed watch my content, and I bring videos to you on a daily basis with a lot more planned for this game and plenty of others. So now that you've taken a moment to do that, I thank you, and let's go ahead and jump into the most extensive gauntlet in the whole of Marvel's Ultimate Alliance 3. The first thing that I do need to note is that I have sped up this footage, and you've already noticed that it's at about 2.5 speed currently. Otherwise, this video would be over an hour long because this gauntlet is that intensive. If you're looking to do the full clear of this gauntlet, you are going to want to make sure, absolutely sure, that you have a solid chunk of time on your hands, as the full clear took me about 3 hours. But it's going to be a run through of a couple of different team dynamics. The first one is going to be a confrontation against the members of the Guardians of the Galaxy, those 4 characters that are within the group. The next section, or the next team that we will face off against, are the Web Warriors, or the Spider-Verse type champions that are available within the game. So we've got Miles Morales, Spider-Man, and Spider-Gwen, and Venom. Those are going to be the 4 characters we need to take on. Now, Spider-Man is probably one of the most annoying persons in this gauntlet to look after, because he will immobilize your entire team if you're not careful. You also need to keep in mind that you have basically an unlimited set of revives. You don't. You have 99 different revives. That should be plenty for you in the initial run of this game, but it's certainly no slouch either. So just keep that in mind as we're running through the different clear conditions here. The other thing is that if you're not already, you'll need to be making sure that you have your health recovery masteries, or have a lot invested into the vitality section of the skill tree in the Alliance Enhancement section. The only other thing that I would recommend is making sure that you are running the best possible ISO as you possibly can. In my case, I do have a decent amount of ISO, ran into a bunch of my different characters. I'm still running the experience enhancement on Black Panther to get him up to level 300, and he hits pretty hard regardless, so I'm not too concerned about that. And the only other noteworthy piece of ISO that I found imperative to this is there is a segment of ISO in the white category that allows you to have a chance to not consume one of your revives when reviving a character on your team. If you max it out, it goes out to being about an 18 or 20% chance, and I do have that ISO applied over to Miles Morales. This third section that we've been watching here is a confrontation against the Marvel Knights and the Defenders. So all of the DLC characters are the ones that come in first. Upon defeating the 4 of them, you will end up being confronted by the members of the Defenders team. And that's assuming that you get to them, because these characters can be kind of difficult. Blade and Punisher tend to be the most annoying of the Marvel Knight characters. But as you see, we are now transitioning over to the Defenders, and they have about, they have to get down to about their 50% mark before it triggers in the final 2 bosses here, which is the form of Elektra and Daredevil. So Luke Cage just went down there. Iron Fist is not going to be too far behind, and then it's just a matter of taking down Daredevil and Elektra. Now, Daredevil is an up-close brawler type character, and Elektra is in the same vein but has some ranged capability. The big scary thing to keep in mind with Daredevil is that he can cause you to take increased amounts of damage based off of the next witness character, the Sonic area of effect attack that he has that increases the damage of all opponents that are caught within the crossfire there. The biggest thing that I recommend for starting any segment of this gauntlet is making sure that you have your extreme attacks on hand, because that is going to be imperative to keeping a consistent amount of damage up, as well as making sure that we have the health regenerating back to our characters based off of the vitality that we have replenished onto the members of our team. Now, we will want to make sure that we're keeping tabs on where these characters are. You don't want to be too shy, especially if you're using Thanos Infinite. You don't want to shy away from detonating his abilities a little bit early in an effort to get away from dash attacks or other attacks that would be detrimental there. So the first section you saw was with Wasp, Falcon, and Hawkeye. As soon as you have them taken out, you will transition over to seeing or confronting Black Widow and Scarlet Witch. They're pretty tame, all things considered, so I do hold on to my extreme attacks here until the final phase of this particular run, because we've got some of the strongest Avenger characters to take on in that final section. And that is going to be Captain America, Iron Man, Black Panther, and Hulk. Hulk in particular is quite devastating, especially where he likes to dash around this box type enclosure that you encounter him in. And that makes things quite difficult when it comes to keeping up your health. He jumps around, he dashes around, and it just causes a problem for anyone and everyone involved. Captain America you also want to be wary of, because he has the ability that is the converse of Daredevil, where instead of decreasing your defense, he increases the offense of his allies, and that tends to be a little bit tedious, but you'll see that we have those characters gone down. I did detonate my extreme attacks a little bit earlier than I intended, but I really needed to heal up my characters to help conserve some of my revives. This next section is just as intensive, where there are 11 characters we need to take out, and it is from the X-Men branch of characters. They segment out the DLC characters pretty well, where in this first section we have Gambit, and then he is joined by Storm and Wolverine. If you can, focus on taking down Storm first, because she has very large area of effect attacks that tend to cause a lot of problems, especially with her hurricane force winds that she can throw out. You'll see that we just about have Gambit taken down, and we will need to finish out him and Wolverine in order to spawn in the next couple of opponents. And those will be Deadpool and Cable as they come into effect here. I do go ahead and unleash my extreme attacks here as well to make sure, again, that we're healing ourselves up. You'll notice that a lot of these characters do have access to what would be the equivalent of their extreme attacks, where they have attacks that they throw out that are not in their conventional base sets. Specifically, you see that a lot with Deadpool, where he does his rockets and TNT detonation periodically throughout the fight, which can be annoying, to say the least, to have to deal with. But as soon as we have Deadpool taken out, we will get into the next couple of characters, which is going to be Psylocke and Nightcrawler. And this is a crew that really packs a punch. So you need to make sure that you are wary of where they are and the attacks that they're throwing out. Iceman actually also spawns in here. So he can be a little bit of a nuisance as well, where he can also increase the defense of the characters that you're fighting against. And with his Ice Spikes attack there, he does have the ability to freeze you in place, which is never fun. But as soon as you have him taken down, you'll have a lot of an easier time in taking out Psylocke and Nightcrawler. You actually saw we did that both in one fell swoop there. And then the final three characters are actually all DLC. The two free characters in the form of Colossus and Cyclops, and then the final member of the paid X-Men DLC, which is Phoenix. And Phoenix, she is probably one of the more annoying ones in this group because of the scope of the attacks that she throws out, as well as her health and EP replenishing aura that she throws out into the arena. And that is definitely devastating, so you want to try and focus her down when and if you can. The other character that's probably the more annoying of the three, and probably the most annoying out of this core three, is going to be Colossus, because he hits hard and it's very difficult to stagger him out of his abilities there. So just keep that in mind as we're looking into that. We are just about finished with this section of the fight, though, so really you've just got to make sure that you're dodging around a lot of these attacks and dashes that are coming out from these different opponents here. And try to keep an eye on how well your opponents are doing. If the main character you're using gets down pretty low, you'll want to switch off to a different member of your team, because as a general rule, your character that you're controlling will take more damage than the other NPCs or non-currently controlled characters on your team. After this section, we switch over to a 5-person boss challenge, which entails a fight primarily, or initially, against Elsa Bloodstone and Ghost Rider. Ghost Rider, I think, is the more annoying of the two, because he dashes around on his motorcycle and he can be a little bit difficult to track down. He also has large sweeping waves of attacks with his Hellfire, which make things pretty difficult to take down. You'll see as soon as we have them taken down, we actually transition over to one boss that we do meet initially in the Dark Dimension, as well as his brother, and that would be Thor and Loki. Thor and Loki, they are pretty formidable. Thor has a lot of ranged attacks, and Loki hits a lot of his things right up front, though he does have a couple of projectiles that can hunt and track you down. The characters that you'll want to make sure that you keep a pendant eye on, again, is the other members of your team. And if you do have characters that are getting low on their energy points, it might be beneficial for you to intentionally sack them off, because when you revive a character, they will fully replenish not only their health, but their energy points as well, so you can unleash a bunch more of your synergy attacks. The 5th and final character that we have to confront here is Doctor Strange, and we'll go ahead and detonate our extreme attacks to kind of heal up the members of our team. You need to be careful, because this is the version of Doctor Strange that has the Dormammu enhancements, so his Bolts of Balthak will have the flame aspect rather than just the standard energy, and that can be quite devastating if you get caught in it, especially where you need to be right up close and personal with Doctor Strange in order to take him out. But with that final dash attack, we do have him removed from the equation. This next section is actually the shortest and, in my opinion, the easiest of all of them, and that is the fight that takes place against Miss Marvel, Captain Marvel, and Crystal, so the characters on the team that have Inhuman attributes. Captain Marvel, even though she is not an Inhuman, she definitely has some alliance or an allegiance to the Miss Marvel in this version of the game, so I can understand where they would pair her in. Though it would have been interesting to see her with her Miss Marvel alternate costume, though we will see that a little bit later in this run. The next section is going to be a similar in its scope, where we are going to be facing off against the members of the Fantastic Four, and they are definitely difficult in their own right, but you will want to try and focus down the ones that take the most amount of damage. Typically, I see that is in the form of Sue Storm and or Reed Richards, but Reed, he dashes around quite a bit and is very mobile, is one of the more mobile members of the Fantastic Four with the different attacks that he has, so he can be a little bit trickier to take down. That also means he's more likely to just roll haphazardly into your crossfire, so as you'll see there, he went down pretty quick. Thing and the Human Torch are definitely a lot more difficult, especially where Thing has an ability that just allows him to negate all sorts of incoming damage with the big boulder he pulls up out of the ground, and you just can't get any damage in on him during that. Luckily, he does not spam that ability a lot, so you don't have to worry a whole lot about it. And just like that, we have those members of this team taken down. We then move into the penultimate section, where there is a 3-person boss rush. It starts off with the confrontation against Magneto, and Magneto does have the Power Stone enhancement, so it's the same type of fight that you're familiar with from the main storyline quest, and you'll want to make sure that you're dashing around him and staying out of the scope of his attacks, especially the ones that draw you in and magnetize you into the center. We also have Thanos, or the Thanos Infinite, the final boss Thanos, that we have to fight against. He's a little bit different than the version that we have at our control, but he does have all of the components of the Infinity Gauntlet available to his use, so that makes him quite the formidable opponent. We do end up throwing in our extreme attacks onto him to get a little more damage in and heal our team up a little bit, but we'll want to be cautious with that because the next and final boss in this little section is definitely no slouch. So we'll get a couple of our attacks in against Thanos there, and then there's a brief section where you actually have a couple of Doombots that come in, so you can heal up the members of your team a little bit before God Emperor Doom makes his appearance. And God Emperor Doom is one of the hardest, if not the hardest, bosses in the entire game. He's a little bit more manageable in this format because you've had a chance to grind up your team a lot longer, especially if you've been focusing on the Gauntlet runs, so just kind of be cautious and wary of him as he comes into effect. Hold on to your extreme attacks until he is in the second phase of the fight, and I actually generally recommend waiting to detonate them, to not do it right here off the bat, but waiting for a very specific animation, and that is the one where he will recall all of his holographic team members just like this. You definitely want to make sure that you take him down during that animation because you will not survive that attack if he ends up absorbing the holographic Avengers back into himself. So make sure that you take him out and then layer into him with all of your synergy attacks whenever you do have an opportunity to stagger him down. The holographic Avengers, they are definitely a major component as to why this fight is as difficult as it is. And because I just wanted to make sure that we got this over with, I went ahead and detonated my extreme attacks a little bit earlier, and especially because I saw that he was starting that final section. This last segment, the 10th area of this gauntlet, is an 11 boss character rush, and the real only caveat with this is you will see that the characters that appear are all sporting different alternate costumes. So it starts off with Doctor Strange here, and then moves into a couple of different characters down the line, and fortunately you only take them on one by one, so you can kind of space yourself around them. We'll then see Spider-Man that pops in, and followed by a couple of others. But we need to talk about the clear conditions and how to get the max rewards. The first criteria, consistent with every other gauntlet that we've ever seen, is getting through and clearing this gauntlet once. But instead of having a meaningless or kind of trivial reward, this one gives you an alternate costume for Doctor Doom. It gives you the Doctor Doom 2099 skin, and it is a really cool looking skin for Doctor Doom. And that's all you have to do for that one, is get through this gauntlet once. The second clear condition is getting 66 bosses taken down, and you're not going to be able to get that within one singular run of the gauntlet, but once you're able to run the gauntlet back and loop back around and through it, you will be able to get that taken care of at that point in time. We're also using Miles Morales to run around and revive members of our team as we're coming into the final sections of the fight here. So within that second section of that gauntlet run, you'll be able to meet that boss's defeated criteria. We also, as we continue in this gauntlet, we have Daredevil that pops in, so we'll need to make sure that we focus him down. And again, as a general rule, I recommend detonating your extreme attacks right off the top of this fight, and then trying to layer in a synergy attack onto the opponent whenever you have the option of staggering them down. The third clear condition that we're aiming for in this is detonating your extreme attacks 200 times, and that is something that you will need to do over the course of 2 gauntlet runs and possibly even into a third, but you're going to need to run into that third gauntlet run anyway, because the final clear condition and the one with the most prestigious reward in all of Ultimate Alliance 3 is getting a score of 2 million or more in this gauntlet. And you're going to need to run that gauntlet almost 3 times to its entirety in order to meet that score threshold. Once you do, you unlock the alternate coloring for that Doom 2099 skin, and it's a black and yellow, or black and gold type recolor, which is really, really cool, and definitely a flex for anyone that you are playing the game with, or anyone that you know that has this skin. or may not have unlocked that skin yet, as it's quite a prestigious one to do. We just saw the Miss Marvel variant of Captain Marvel come in here, and then that takes us into Punisher 2099 that we'll need to take on. And he is definitely one of the more annoying characters in this boss rush because of his sniper ability. He will decimate anywhere from 50 to 70% of your health, depending on the character that you're using at the time, if you are the one that gets caught in the crossfire there. He also tends to stagger you out, which can be a little bit annoying with his clouded attacks and the dashbacks that he does. So just kind of be aware that he's going to give you a run for his money as we're layering into him. We'll need to make sure that we are on our toes for the remainder of this section. We're about at the midway point, and that is where Wolverine in his Old Man Logan variant comes in. And really at this stage, it's just a lot of rinsing and repeating the same segments, making sure that we are layering into him with as many of our synergies as we can when he is staggered out, or getting that full stagger to unlock. With that, we'll also dash around a little bit as Thanos Infinite to make sure that we are dealing a lot of damage to him and staying out of his immediate range of effects, because getting slashed in the face by Wolverine's claws is not fun for anyone involved, except for maybe him. I think he enjoys it a little bit too much. Once we have Wolverine taken down, we will get the variation of Star-Lord that pops in. We'll be able to take him on pretty easily. He's not a glass cannon, so to speak, but he is a little bit lower in the overall health pool from a couple of the other characters that we've seen. But he does have a lot of different abilities that are ranged and can be quite difficult to muster and take down. We'll layer into him with a couple of final synergy attacks here and take him on with a few of our last strengths and reps here, before moving on to the next character, which is our variation on Crystal. And Crystal, she fits the definition of glass cannon a little bit more. She's quite versatile in the attacks that she can throw out, and can be devastating if you get caught in a lot of her close-up detonations. But she goes down, I think, a little bit quicker than any of the other team members that we've looked at so far. We'll layer back into her with a couple of final attacks, and just like that, with one more synergy, we've got her taken down. The ninth character is, of course, Thor, and this is with the Stormbreaker alternate costume, which is a really cool alternate costume for him to have, in all honesty. So it's really nice to see that these types of variations have been added in. He can be very annoying with the range that he has, whether it's with his lightning strike that he sends outwards from his hammer, in this case Stormbringer, normally Mjolnir. But he also has a lot of those attacks that will twirl the hammer around him or send bolts echoing across the combat floor. With him taken down, we can move along to the penultimate boss character, which is going to be Mr. Fantastic in the Future Foundation alternate costume, which is a really fun alternate costume for him. This one is actually found by clearing out some of the other gauntlets that we've done previously in this section, and it works quite well for him and looks really good. We will want to make sure that we layer into him with our abilities to layer him down, and then the synergies to make sure that we get meaningful damage in. The biggest difficulty with Mr. Fantastic is the two attacks where he either turns himself into a tire and rolls around, or where he uses his arms to swing out in a large sweeping area of effect. So we'll just layer into him with a couple final attacks here. And then the last boss character we have is Iron Man. Now this is an alternate costume for him, but it doesn't look drastically different from the or the standard outfit that he has, just because it is a variation on one of his armors that he has. Which is cool that it's there. I just wish that it was a little bit more distinctive, if we're being completely honest. The biggest nuisance with his attacks are the ones that have the laser repulsors that he spins around, because that does a pretty decent amount of damage and also knocks you down. So if you see him firing up that attack, you'll want to keep your distance when and where possible. But we'll have him taken out with a final detonation of a few synergies here, and that will be it for the final and ultimate Gauntlet run. This series has been a lot of fun, so if you enjoyed it, please feel free to leave the video a like. Again, don't forget to subscribe, as we are nowhere near being done with content for Ultimate Alliance 3, so I hope you stick around for more. And with all that being said, thanks so much for all your support with these video series, and we hope to see you in the next video. Thanks again for your time, and I hope that you have a fantastic rest of your day.